is loading one line of code at a time, and every software is actually a sequence of events, and these events are happening in the exact order. So every time you reload your WordPress page, the same events happen in the same order. It's just most of that is cached, so you don't wait that much, but it's always the same order. And first, when we reload the page in WordPress, we will see, first we will, WordPress will load core files, and these files are responsible for connecting to database and all sorts of settings. After that, we get must-use plugins and regular plugins. After that comes child theme and parent theme. Now this order is very important for developers to know. So it's first plugins and then child theme and then parent theme. And it is important to know this because it will directly affect the way you are extending plugins and parent theme. After that, WordPress becomes aware of the currently logged in user. And at the end, we get templates from theme. Now, when all of this happens, page is loaded. And this is very, very simplified presentation of loading WordPress. There's so many more things happening. And here I have left a little space for 3 very commonly used hooks. So when all plugins are loaded, we get the hook plugins loaded, and this is used mostly by plugin authors. So when they want to make sure that all plugins are loaded, they then execute what they want, the custom functionality, and hook it to plugins loaded hook. After setup theme is practically the same just for themes. So when everything is set up in theme, we get this hook. Then if we want to make sure that all plugins, all themes, and all user abilities that a user can do, when all of that is loaded, we get the Init Hook. Now, these are only 3 of many, many hooks that are in WordPress. So how do we find those hooks? You can always read code. You open your your source code and read it. It could take a time, but you will find all of them there. You can also read the documentation, and you should definitely read documentation all the time. But there is also one place where all hooks are together. Now, not all hooks inside WordPress, but all hooks that are in use for this specific WordPress install. And this place is one array, and it is saved in global var called WP filter. And now we are going to take a look at, I'm gonna switch share now. We are going to take a look at this WordPress install. So this is, just a moment. I need to move. Here, okay. So this is the fresh WordPress install. There is nothing in there. This is default 2020 theme. And here I only have 2 plugins added. This one, Kint PHP Debugger, and UpDevTools WordPress plugin. So I'm not going to use this one today. I'm going to use this one. And both of them are made from Tonya Mork. And actually this plugin has inside this one and 2 more things. Now, why am I going to do this? Because I want to show you, I want to var dump this global var WP filter, and it's gonna be mess if I just do it like that. But with this plugin, you get this view. So it's much more developer friendly, so you can see everything. And it says here, you can use it instead of var dump, printar, debug, backtrace, and we are going to use this one. It's very useful for developers. And this other plugin that I'm using most of the time is not in WordPress repository, it is on GitHub, and it has this one. So that is the one that we are going to use. It is just PHP tool that Tonya was very kind enough to wrap in WordPress plugin. It has Composer and it has Whoops, which is really good for debugging. So you can see all the errors and backtrace and everything, environment details. So it's very, very good. I recommend it. So now we are going to use this to dump a WP filter, so we can see. I'm gonna do it right here. So we can see all the hooks in this WordPress install. So global WP filter. And I'm just going to do DDD. DDD means drop and die. So nothing will execute after that. And when I reload, you can see this is backtrace. So you can see where I call this, on which line, in which file, and you can go all the way to the main index. And we can see that there are 307 hooks currently in fresh WordPress. And here are all of them. And here, Init, we already talked about Init. So here is everything you need to know about Init in this WordPress install. So this is the name of the hook. These are priorities. So if we take a look at this function, add action, as this is the function that you will use to hook to Init. This is string, this is tag, and it's actually the name of the hook. It's Init. After that, we get callable. Now here it says function to add, but it's not actually just function, it's callback. So something that is hooked to Init, and this is the function name. So you can find all the names of functions that are hooked into Init. Then we get priority. The default is 10. So these are the numbers 0, 1, 5, 10, 99. Those are priorities. And as you can see, when WordPress is loading, it goes from up and then every single line one by one. So if you want your code to be executed earlier, you should put a lower number. If you want it to be later, you should put a bigger number. Now, inside of the priority, inside of the same priority, you cannot control where it will happen, but you can control which priority will it be. So this 2020 Classic Editor Styles, it's executing at the end of priority 10. But what if I want to execute it here before all of that? I could change that. Just copy. I could change that to, here it is. So this is Init, this is callback. And if I change that priority to 6, for example, and I'm gonna go back here and just dump Init, so we don't have to take, you don't have to look at all of them. So now we are just looking at Init, and here's 0, 1, 5, 6. So I moved it to execute before all of this. So this is how you control where it will happen. And the last thing that we have here is accepted args. Now this is default 1, and you can see it here. And it's always for actions, it's always 1. It cannot be more, but for filters, it can be more than 1. So what we don't see here is whether this is filter or action. And you have to wonder, does it really matter if if it's filter or action because it doesn't say here. This is everything important is here. So we are going to try this now to see. Let me find NQ. Okay, so this is action where when this happens, this moment in loading WordPress, that's when WordPress is loading all the CSS and JavaScript files. So if you want your CSS and JavaScript files to be loaded, to be added to that, what you need to do is to create function. In that function, you enqueue all your assets, your styles and scripts, and then you hook that same action, that same function to the enqueue script. So when this happens in loading, WordPress will load all of them, and then it will include yours callback as well. So this is this function is in this place used as hooking to a hook. It's called callback. So if I now comment this out and go back, oh, I first need to comment out this one. Okay, so here we are. If I comment that out, we will see a website without CSS and JavaScript. So this is needed for all that to be, for all that code to be loaded. If I change this action to filter and go back, it works. So apparently here it doesn't matter if it's action or filter. So let's try to find a filter and change it to action. Now this one is good. This is the piece of markup when you have a longer post like this one. I'm gonna add some more content. And I don't want to show all of this on archive pages, so I'm gonna add this more. And it will show a link to the post where you can see the rest of the content. And here, this is single post, so you can see all of that, but if I go to archive, you can see this button. Now, without this addition, it's just a regular link. Here it is. And you click to it and you go to a single post. Developers from 2020, they just added some markup and classes, so you have a button. And if I change this to action and go back, you see it's working. So we come to conclusion that it's actually the same, it doesn't matter. So we can take a look at source code. This is function add action, and if we look at source code, you can see it's just a wrapper for add filter, so it's the same exactly. It has the same parameters, everything the same. So if we want to take a look at the difference, because there has to be a difference, there wouldn't be different functions. We want to take a look at difference between actions and filters. We need to go to the core of Hook's functionality, which is in WP includes, and then we go to plugin file. Here it is. So the functions that are used for creating action and filter are, let's find filters. So it's apply filters. With this function, you will create a filter. So this is what we have. We have tag that is unique name for the hook, like init. Then we have this value. And we have this spread operator on arguments. Here are arguments. So we get global WP filter and current filter, and then we are checking if this this specified tag, if that exists already. If it doesn't exist, we add it to our array. Now let's take a look at do action, which is the function for creating action. So you see here, we don't have value, we have tag, so that's the name of the hook. We have spread operator on arguments, and we are calling WP filter, WP actions, and current filter. And then we are going through all the actions and all the filters, and if it's not anywhere, then we add it to our array. So we don't have this value here, and that is the most important difference. The main difference is that when you have filter, you get this value that you can change, you can do stuff to it, and then you return it. But when you have action, there is no value. You just can insert your code, and those values are responsible. There can be more than one value that you can change, and those are responsible for that number accepted arguments, so that you can have more than one. So if we look here at the end, you see here 2020 has created custom filter. They used apply filters. They gave a name. So this is somehow a naming convention. You always need to prefix everything. And there is this value that you can change. You can do stuff to that. And what is this value? It's here. It's an array of different default CSS. So you can change all of that for different parts of the website. And that is really a good way to allow people to change things in child teams. So you can change everything with this filter. You can change, you can completely remove this if you don't want it, or you can change just parts of it. So if we take a look at other functions, here are the main differences, but let's take a look at other functions that are created for action. So you see this did action is kind of different. It doesn't include filters. Let's go a bit further. But here, has action is wrapper for has filter. Remove action is wrapper for remove filter. Remove all actions, and there are many of those functions for actions that are only just wrappers for the same function for filters, but there are also differences. So it has to be important to choose filters for filters and action, even though if you have, if it would be executed the same if you use action or filter. So when you use filters, that is the most important thing. When you use filters, wherever you have the value that you change and return, and use actions whenever you want to insert your code or do something differently, then it will be clear to you and to other developers what exactly you are doing. It's easier for maintaining, it's semantic, and it's proper way to do it. And you will avoid those unexpected situations if you have more than one accepted argument and you use action. It will be it will not return as you expected. expected it to. So I'm going to switch now to slides. Just a second. Okay. So we saw that the main differences are in do action and apply filters, because those are functions for creating these hooks. All of these and some more are actually just, these are wrappers for these functions with filters. And the most used one, and the probably functions that you first start using when you start doing things with hooks, are add action and add filter. And we saw that parameters are completely the same, but filters can have more than one accepted argument. And I'm going to show you that now in, I'm going to switch back. In this content more link that we used. So here, this is the filter, and let me open that filter. So this is documentation for code reference. You can search here. And you can select hooks, classes, methods, everything is documented. So please use that. Now this is apply filters function, and it's the content more link. We already saw that. And we saw that this first element is used by 2020. So they're just changing this first parameter. The second one is more link text. And if I wanted to add here text, and oh, I removed this. Okay, if I wanted to add that, and maybe I don't even want to change anything, just add that and go back to website. And I get this error. It says too few arguments to function 2020 read more tag. So what I did, I added here both accepted args, but I'm not saying that here. So first is parameter after the callback is priority, and default is 10. So I'm gonna leave that, but here I have to, instead of 1, I have to say 2, because I used here 2. And now I get it back. So that is the difference, and that's what accepted parameters mean. And I can completely remove this one and say text equals to escape HT, always escape all your strings and make them translatable. New text 2020 and return. Always have to return. So if I do this, I have completely removed the markup and the link and everything, and I'm just returning this text. So that's how it's working. And because I wanted to use only this second one, I had to add this first one. And then I have to add this parameter to be 2. Accepted arguments are 2. So I'm gonna move all that back. And this is not needed. Okay. And now I think it's also important that we understand what exactly callable means. So the callable is type of data, like we have a string or number or array. So those are types of data in PHP. And callable is yet another type of data, and it's introduced in PHP 5.4. So this means that functions add action and add filter are expecting something to be callable as a second parameter. And there is also a function in PHP called isCallable, which is just checking if value is callable or not. And what this callable has to have to be callable, well, it needs to have a valid and fully qualified name. This means that you should be able to call this callable from wherever inside your project, and it should work. It should not return errors. So it has to have a full name. And the second request is to be accessible, but not in a way of accessibility as a technology for disabled. It should be accessible in a way that it's public, and as opposed to protected or private, as you can have them in PHP classes. So you need to you need to be able to call it freely from outside of its scope, its class. And what are those values that can be callable? Well, those are functions, as we already saw. So function is a piece of code you write, and you can call that function from wherever your WordPress install. So that is a fully qualified name. It has no dynamic parts of it. It's fully qualified name, and it's public, it's accessible. Then method is a function, but in a class, and method can be private or protected or public, so it needs to be public to be callable. And closure is anonymous function. And let's see now all of these in a role of a callback. So this is, we already saw this. This is function, and this is the callback. So you can call it from wherever, from other files as well. If you're using namespaces, this is the fully qualified name. So it needs to have namespace and the name of the function, and then that's callable. This is callable when using namespace. So you can call it outside of it. In a class, here we have static function. Now this one has a different type of a full name. A full name for static function includes the class name and then the method name. And it can be written like this in array or like this in string with this double colon. And the regular public method is in class called with this keyword. So this would be the fully qualified name for that. If you're using namespaces, again, you need a namespace and class name and method name for static methods, and for non-static, for regular public methods, it's the same, it doesn't matter. And this is closure. So this is anonymous function. You see here add filter, and we have the hook name and the second parameter that we would just give it the name of the function. Here we are just executing this function, and this function doesn't have a name. Now this is very handy. It only has 3 lines of code, but you have to be careful with anonymous functions because they don't have a name. So if you want to remove this filter later or do anything with it, you cannot, because there is no name for this callback. And of course there is some name. It has to be registered somewhere. So if you take a look at WP filter global, you will find some a random ID, some hash or something like that. So maybe you can use that, but I think it's much better not to use anonymous function unless you are sure that no one should or will change anything. So that should be really, you should be really careful to when doing that. So hooks are the base of how WordPress functions. With core hooks, you can customize almost every piece of WordPress because hooks allow extendability, extending functionality. And if you're building themes and plugins, using core hooks whenever possible is the right way of doing it. However, let's not end this extendability with your theme and plugin. Whichever you are building, it won't be perfect. It will not have everything everyone has ever wanted. Some people, and many of them, will want to change something. So with themes, there are several ways to allow customizing in child themes. And one of those ways is writing custom hooks, as we already saw in 2020. But when writing plugins, custom hooks are the only way for people to extend your plugin, to change something in other plugins or themes. So writing hooks is necessary because they make your code actually usable. So now I'm going to write 2 custom hooks in 2020 theme, and then we will see how our life will be much easier in child themes. So let's see, template parts and entry header. I'm gonna add something here. So this is the title of the entry of single post. It's this one. And it doesn't matter if it's archive or is singular, you see both are here. So before this, I'm gonna create an action. Do action, and I'm gonna name it 2020 before title. That's gonna be okay. So now it doesn't change anything, nothing is happening. But now I can go to my functions file and I'm gonna use this, add action. So this is the name of the hook, 2020 before title, and I'm gonna say 20. I know this is a lot of typing, but you should always follow conventions. 2020 parent before title. And now this is the name of my callback. Now I can create my callback. I say 2020 before title. And here I want to just add some text. Escape HTML. Always escape your string. Parent before title. And here 2020. Okay. And now if I go to, here it is. It's before title, it's showing everywhere where this title is. Now I could have done this like this. Just, this is the same. And I'm gonna change here so you can see test. Here it is. So it's completely the same thing, but with this one, when I use this, someone who is creating a child theme needs to create this template parts folder, and then entry header PHP file, and then copy all of this just to remove this one line, because that's how you can overwrite template files in child theme. And every time this my theme gets updated, this developer has to go through this file to see if something is changed. So it's really difficult to maintain a child theme like this, and this is not developer friendly, future developer friendly. So when you do it like this, you don't have to change anything in this template file. I can add to my functions whatever I want. And now we are going to create a filter, and after that we are going to create a child theme. So let's say function 2020 after title. And here I'm gonna just say, for example, message is escape HTML. Parent after title. And I'm gonna return message. Now I can just use this function and say here after the title. And here it is, parent after title. So the same thing as with this action, I could have just echo text here, but with this one, no one has to change anything. I can completely remove this without touching this file. I can remove this in child theme. And now we are going to create child theme. So you can see how easy life can be. I use always WPCLI and child theme. And I'm going to use prompt because I don't like to remember all the parameters. Slug, let's make it child. Parent slug is 2020. Name, let it be child. This is not important. Activate, yes. And here we have a child theme. You can see here that nothing has changed because child theme is fully using a parent template, but here it is. We have child theme and it's activated. So now let's take a look at themes. Here is our child. And this is beautiful in WPCLI. They do everything for you. They enqueue scripts, and they already enqueue style from parent and then child. So we can just start coding. So I'm going to modify that action that we had. And I will just copy this from here to our child theme. And I'm gonna say parent, make it child. And here I'm gonna say child, text domain is also child. And let's go here. So here we have child before title and parent before title. So first is loaded child. That's why you see it first. First goes child theme and then parent theme. And now I don't want to see this from parent theme. I just want to have the text from child theme. So what I'm gonna do, I need this piece of code where this callback is hooked, and I'm gonna say remove this action, and nothing is changed. So why is nothing changed? Exactly because first we are loading child. So what happens here is this file is loaded before this one. So I'm removing action that hasn't even created. And how we can change this, how can we apply? Well, we need to find a moment in loading WordPress where we know that this file is also loaded, where this code is executed. So the safe one that we already saw is init. So I'm gonna say child init. I'm gonna move this one inside and add action. Init and my child init. So now I said do not execute this with this file. Wait until all of things are set and there's user and I know everything is loaded, and then remove this one. And now we see only the child one. So it is very important to know the order, to know when is something happening. And let me now modify our filter. This is what we have with filter. So, right, so this is actually not a filter. We didn't create a filter. This is not possible to be modified in child theme. We cannot just remove this function at all. Now, you might have seen in some themes that it says if a function exists, and then the same name of the function. So when function is wrapped with this, then you can have the same function name in your child theme and do something different. For example, let me just do that here, and I say here child. Oh, I cannot redeclare. Oh, okay. So it doesn't work. Oh, if not function, sorry. If not function exists. All right. So here we have a child after title. And this is one of the ways you can modify code from parent theme. But this is not what we are talking about now. This is, we are talking about hooks. And to me, much cleaner way to do is to return filter here. So apply filters. And I like to call my filters the same way as the function is where it's created. And this message is value that we are sending so everyone can change it. Now I need to say here child. So it cannot have the same name. And the parameter I have, this value, I can use to change it. Right. Yeah, we need to hook this to a filter. Filter name is 2020 after title. Add filter. And now it's child. Or if I want to add, to use what is already in parent and just add to it, I can do it like this. So when you build themes and plugins, do create custom hooks whenever possible. You can use do action on places where you want where you want to allow people to add code. Also, you can pack your own code in do action and people can remove it. When you have a value that can be changed, for example, array of settings or some text, use apply filters, allow those values to be changed. And the most important thing is that this tag, the hook name needs to be unique, just as for slugs and function names, so follow the naming conventions. And at the end, I would like to just summarize everything we talked about. So WordPress hooks are actions and filters. There is exact loading order for everything in WordPress and therefore for hooks as well. And you need to know that order. All hooks can be found in global var WP filter. To register your custom functionality to existing hook, you need to put that code inside a valid callback and write custom hooks, make your code extensible and usable. My name is Milana. I'm freelance WordPress and PHP developer at Toptal, and thank you very much for your time. You can find me on these networks if you have anything, if you want to discuss something, follow up, or ask questions. So that's going to be it.
Thanks, Milana. That was a very, very good session. I really like the fact that you went in depth about the custom hooks, not just saying that, like, how something can be done, but why we need to do it. And you actually, like, showed us examples where how this can be used in a real world scenario. I think that's way more valuable because it kind of gives people an idea about when and how to use a feature, right? Because how to use a feature, we could like read from documentation, but when that can be applied is very important. And I think that came out really, really well in the discussion. And thank you very much for doing that. So I'm just going to quickly see if people have any questions in the chat. So Rajan also says it was very informative.
Thank
so
you,
people like, so even Shiba was saying that it was very detailed session. As I said, because like, when people think WordPress, hooks is one of the very fundamentals of WordPress, right? I mean, if you have to write a custom plugin or a custom theme, anything of that sort, you have to know hooks. And like, people used to say that 80% of writing a WordPress plugin is just figuring out the correct hooks. Because once you find that out, then it becomes easier to get started with. And I think I'm going to quickly check one more time. So Vijayan is asking about front-end hooks. So I'm assuming basically what he means is, are there any hooks in JavaScript? Milan, do you want to answer that?
Well, yeah, there are. I haven't used them, to be honest. There are more hooks connected to block editor, but that is also, I don't know if they affect much of the front end. Some does, where you add a custom class or something like that. But I don't know about core JavaScript files that are outside of block editor. I'm not sure. The problem is we don't have that in documentation because our documentation is parsing PHP files. and the parser for JavaScript files is in process of making, but it's not ready yet. So that's why we don't have anything, any function, anything in documentation about JavaScript files. I think the best place to ask is to go to WordPress Slack, official Slack, and there is core JavaScript channel. So maybe ask there when we'll see something like, or where you can find that. I'm sure that the developers who are working on that have posted something about that on their blogs or somewhere. So there has to, if there are any, it's somewhere published. I'm just not the right person to ask that. But as I said, I know there are JavaScript hooks for block editor. I don't know about the others.
Yep. Yeah, as you said, I think the framework for having hooks in JavaScript has been added as part of Gutenberg.
Yeah.
As you said, even I'm not sure like if that has been extended to other parts of WordPress core where we don't have, I mean, other parts of WordPress core which is not related to Gutenberg or the block editor. But I think the core framework is there, and it's also possible for us to use these framework for creating our own custom hooks in JavaScript. I think that's possible.
Well, those hooks in Gutenberg are actually React hooks, and that's really cool stuff. And it's easy for PHP WordPress developers to understand that hooks because we already have that. So I don't know about the rest, as I said, but you can write custom hooks in for Gutenberg in React. That's possible.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I think I'm just scrolling the chat one more time. Looks like there aren't any more questions.
Yeah.
And I think we are just on time. So once again, thank you very much, Milana, for an excellent talk.
Thank you.
And as I said, like we have recorded this session, so we will post it in YouTube in a couple of days, and we'll probably send you the link as well.
Yeah, and, thank you for inviting me. This was nice.
Thank you very much.